Welcome to the Success Series podcast, brought to you by the Presto Post. This show is all about the secrets, recipes, and philosophies of some of the world's most famous people, be them composers, actors, actresses, entrepreneurs, authors, painters, investors, philosophers, journalists, scientists, you name it. Each episode features one person, and typically 7 to 10 separate pieces of advice. These podcasts are not done by us, however. What we do instead is comb the internet platforms for any recordings and audio clips that already exist, study them, and then separate the wheat from the chaff. These podcasts are the wheat, or as we like to call them, nutritious audio snacks. The golden number is 7. This is the number of lessons we try to fit into each podcast, but inevitably we struggle to keep within that number. Sometimes there is just too much to cram into 7, that we have no choice but to include 10 or more. Besides, are not rules made to be broken? And seeing as we created that rule in the first place, well... Anyway, onto the show. Today's guest should need very little introduction. Should, but in fact does. Charlie Munger is a man who vehemently dislikes the spotlight, and so has spent his life trying to avoid it. The reason he should need very little introduction is, ironically, also the reason he does need introduction. Charlie Munger is known as Warren Buffett's right-hand man, and is the man to whom Buffett credits most of his success. This is not a trivial claim, and it highlights one of the many reasons more people ought to know about Charlie, if only for the fact that Buffett has a net worth of about $84 billion. Because Warren loves the spotlight, in contrast to his friend, Charlie has naturally let him take it during the several decades that they've been in the public eye. Whilst this has served Charlie well, however, it also means less people know about him. Why this is unfortunate is not just because he made Warren magnificently rich and successful. He is also profound intellect and treasure-trove of worldly wisdom, which he shares in the form of stories, blunt axioms, and esoteric jokes. Charlie's Wikipedia page has him as an American investor, businessman, author, philanthropist, and as vice chairman at Berkshire Hathaway. This says very little, though, about the extremely eventful and productive life he has lived, which includes a career in law, being the top man in several different corporations, including a hospital, and lots of philanthropy work. Charlie and Warren host the wildly popular Berkshire Hathaway annual conference. This is where the company shareholders and a selected number of journalists get together to listen to the two of them, usually for several hours, give updates and their thoughts on the past year, and answer questions about business, life, and sometimes about Warren's Coca-Cola and peanut brittle diet. The fact that many people attend this event for nothing else but to listen to the wise words of Charlie Munger says an awful lot. For a deeper insight into Charlie's life, I recommend 2 fantastic books. First is Getting Behind the Scenes with Charlie Munger by Janet Lowe. Second is Poor Charlie's Almanac. The first book digs deep into his personal life, whilst the latter is almost exclusively about his work, teachings, and advice. That's enough from me. Well, one more point. There is so much to share from Charlie that we will be releasing another podcast about the same length very shortly. Call it Munger Podcast 2.0. And now for the man himself. Here are 7 lessons from Charlie Munger. Number 1. Practice the right approach. This means considering all the information, evidence, and arguments, whether they're in support or against your viewpoint or the viewpoints of others. It means learning the subject matter through and through, so that you're more informed than anyone else. It means destroying your own cherished ideas. It means taking a slower, more thoughtful, diligent approach to your work, to your life. It means thinking long term, which means being disciplined, because this type of thinking does not come naturally to us.
I listened in law school when some wag said, "A legal mind is a mind that when 2 things are all twisted up together and interacting, it's feasible to think responsibly about one thing and not the other." Well, I could see from that one sentence that was perfectly ridiculous, and it pushed me further into my natural drift, which was into learning all the big ideas and all the big disciplines. So I wouldn't be a perfect damn fool who was trying to think about one aspect of something that couldn't be removed from the totality of the situation in a constructive fashion. And what I noted, since the really big ideas carry 95% of the freight, that it wasn't at all hard for me to pick up all the big ideas in all the disciplines and make them a standard part of my mental routines. Once you have the ideas, of course, they're no good if you don't practice. If you don't practice, you lose it. So I went through life constantly practicing this multidisciplinary approach. Well, I can't tell you what that's done for me. It's made life more fun. It's made me more constructive. It's made me more helpful to others. It's made me enormously rich. You name it, that attitude really helps.
2. The best way to get what you want in life is to deserve it. Not through taking shortcuts, cheating others, cheating systems, bribery, hoping, praying, protesting, playing the victim, licking ass, or being a dick. If you work to get what you want, you will have real and true satisfaction should you get what it is that you want. And you will know how you got there. And you will be able to teach others. And you will be an example to others. And perhaps, most importantly, you will have your dignity intact.
Well, luckily, I got at a very early age the idea that the safest way to try and get what you want is to try and deserve what you want. It's such a simple idea. It's the golden rule, so to speak. You want to deliver to the world what you would buy if you were on the other end. There is no ethos, in my opinion, that is better for any lawyer or any other person to have. By and large, the people who've had this ethos win in life, and they don't win just money, just honors and emoluments. They win the respect, the deserved trust of the people they deal with. And there is huge pleasure in life to be obtained from getting deserved trust. And the way to get it is to deliver what you'd want to buy if the circumstances were reversed.
3. It is going to be hard. The struggles are as hard and real as people say they are. Overcoming them, though, is the only way to move forward. You can shy away and you can stay in denial, but this will very quickly take you to no place whatsoever. Or you can take responsibility for your circumstances and carry on anyway. You will fail, encounter loss, and go through hardships. This is unavoidable if you want the above average life. But moaning and complaining, playing the victim, feeling sorry for yourself, depression, living in the past, these things do not help you and often harm you. Plus, nobody likes a moaner.
It's not my nature, when you get little surprises as a result of human nature, to spend much time feeling betrayed. I'm always want to just put my head down and adjust. So I don't allow myself to spend much time ever with any feelings of betrayal. So you're asking the wrong person, because if some flickering idea like that came to me, I'd get rid of it quickly. I don't like any feeling of being victimized. I think that's a counterproductive way to think as a human being. And I am not a victim. I'm a survivor.
Numero 4. No self-pity. Self-pity is destabilizing, stupefying, crippling, useless, and foolish. Going against the grain means you're going to fail, which means you're more vulnerable to bouts of self-pity and despair. Hence, you must work tirelessly to avoid it, especially if you already have a tendency to feel sorry for yourself, which most of us do, unfortunately.
Life will have terrible blows in it, horrible blows, unfair blows. Doesn't matter. And some people recover and others don't. And there I think the attitude of Epictetus is the best. He thought that every mischance in life was an opportunity to behave well. Every mischance in life was an opportunity to learn something. And that your duty was not to be submerged in self-pity, but to utilized the terrible blow in a constructive fashion.
5. Charlie Munger is the man to whom Warren Buffett often credits much of his success and wealth to. Warren is regarded as one of the greatest investors of all time, and currently has a net worth of about $84 billion. He met Charlie, however, a long time before he started making real money. In interviews, Warren often says how he doubts he would have achieved what he has without the help of Munger. Munger, being the self-deprecating soul he is, naturally laughs himself as garbage. One thing they do agree on, however, is that lifelong learning has served as their biggest advantage and is the primary reason for their gigantic success. The two of them are absolute learning machines, always have been and always will be. Warren is more specialised in his learning, whilst Charlie is more of a generalist. Hence, the two complement each other very nicely. The lesson? Keep learning. Prioritising, in fact. The long-term benefits of lifelong learning are unknowable, profound, and incredible.
The other great secret is that we're good at lifelong learning. Warren is so much better in some ways in his 70s and 80s than he was younger that it's almost awesome. If you keep learning all the time, you have a huge advantage. And we both just like it.
And we have a wonderful group of friends, really wonderful.
From whom we can learn a lot. The one that probably did us the most good as a learning experience was See's Candy. It just, the power of the brand, the unending flow of ever-increasing money with no work.
Sounds nice.
It was, and I'm not sure we would have bought the Coca-Cola if we hadn't bought the Seas. I think that a life properly lived is just learn all the time. And I think Berkshire's gained enormously from these investment decisions by learning through a long, long period. Every time you appoint a new person that's never had big capital allocation experience, it's like rolling the dice. And I think we're way better off having done it so long. But the decisions blend, and the one feature that comes through is the continuous learning. If we had not kept learning, you wouldn't even be here. You'd be alive probably, but not here.
In certain cases, you actually can learn a lot just by asking a lot of questions. And I give Phil Fisher credit. That book goes back a lot of years, but as Charlie said, some of the companies he picked as winners forever did sort of peter out on him. But the basic idea, you can learn a lot of things just by asking in some cases. I mean, if I got interested in the coal industry, just say, to pick one out of the air, when I was much younger, more energetic, if I went and talked to the heads of 10 coal companies, and I asked each one of them way later into the conversation after they got feeling very, it felt like talking, and I would just, I'd just say, if you had to go away for 10 years on a desert island and you had to put all of your family's money into one of your competitors, which one would it be and why? And then, then I'd ask them if they had to sell short one of their competitors for 10 years, all their family money, why? And everybody loves talking about their competitors. And if you do that with 10 different companies, you'll probably have a better fix on the economics of the coal industry than any one of those individuals has. I mean, there's ways of getting at things, and sometimes they're useful, sometimes they're not. But sometimes they can be very useful. And the idea of just learning more all the time about, I'm more specialized than that by far than Charlie. I mean, he wants to learn about everything, and I just want to learn about something that will help Berkshire. But it's a very it's a very useful attitude toward the world. And of course, I don't know who said it, but somebody said the problem is not in getting the new ideas, but shedding the old ones. And there's a lot of truth to that.
We would never have bought ISCAR if it had come along 10 years earlier. We would never have bought precision cast parts if it had come along 10 years earlier. We are learning, and my God, we're still learning.
6. Similar to the last, lesson number 6 is about knowing the big ideas. Munger says this quite regularly in interviews, without ever going into what he means precisely by, quote, big ideas. What he seems to be suggesting, though, is to get yourself well educated in the field you want to play in. This means learning the fundamental principles, or first principles as they're often known, and how things work and why. Applied to life in general, it means learning about the economy, about history, education, about politics, the sciences, and about the arts. It means understanding how the world works at multiple different levels, and it means keeping informed about current world events.
I'm really following a very key idea of the greatest lawyer of antiquity, Marcus Tullus Cicero. And Cicero is famous for saying, a man who doesn't know what happened before he's born goes through life like a child. Now, that is a very correct idea of Cicero's, and he's right to ridicule somebody so foolish as not to know what happened before he was born. But if you generalize Cicero, as I think one should, there are all these other things that you should know in addition to history. And those other things are the big ideas in all the other disciplines. And it doesn't help you just to know them enough so you could prattle them back on an exam and get an A. You have to learn these things in such a way that they're in a mental lattice work in your head and you automatically use them for the rest of your life. If you do that, I solemnly promise you that one day you'll be walking down the street and you'll look to your right and left and you'll think, my heavenly days, I'm now one of the few most competent people of my whole age cohort.
7. Understanding the field you're playing ball in gives you a huge advantage. This is the philosophy that has earned Warren and Charlie tens of billions of dollars. By learning everything they possibly could about their subject matter, they have been, by definition, much more able than 99% of their competitors since day one, which has enabled them to spot opportunities earlier and avoid costly mistakes, and it has made them insanely rich. Applying yourself to one domain and getting very good at it can serve you very well in the long term. The point, in other words, is this. You want to rig the game so you can win. But rigging it this way, that is, focusing on understanding, means you're doing it in a way that is ethical, good, useful to society, and can be very fruitful. How do you do this? In the investing game, this means betting in fields that you understand. In life, it means avoiding shallow understanding of where you expend most of your resources. For example, in the workplace, it means knowing the rules before you try breaking them. It means understanding your finances. It means narrowing down in order to get really proficient in a specific domain. It means developing useful skills to above average levels. In a nutshell, take understanding very seriously indeed.
We have to deal in things that we're capable of understanding. And then once we're over that filter, we have to have a business with some intrinsic characteristics that give it a durable competitive advantage. And then, of course, we would vastly prefer a management in place with a lot of integrity and talent. And finally, no matter how wonderful it is, it's not worth an infinite price. So we have to have a price that makes sense and gives a margin of safety considering the natural vicissitudes of life. That's a very simple set of ideas. And the reason that our ideas have not spread faster is they're too simple. The professional classes can't justify their existence if that's all they have to say.
If you like the Success Series podcast, there are many ways you can support it. You can leave a review on iTunes, on our website, or any place else the podcast appears. You can share it with friends, on social media, or on your own blog or podcast. You can purchase any books we recommend in various articles on our website, the Presto Post, using the hyperlinks, which will take you straight to Amazon. You can hijack the microphone the next time you find yourself in a karaoke night and yell out the URL to our podcast feed. Or you can support us directly with a donation by going to prestopost.org/support, where you'll find all the necessary links. As always, thank you for listening.